Okay. Thank you for the effort. Well, this is jumping ahead. Can I start there?
Yeah, go for it, Sal.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to the 7FA users group. I'm going to be talking about Powerplant analytics and optimization. Key questions for the market today is always related to data, and Strategic Power Systems has always been a data-focused company. So with that, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. ORAP as a solution. SPS is the founder of the ORAP system. ORAP is the Operational Reliability Analysis Program. It was set up back in the 1980s when SPS was founded. And today we have over 3,000 operating units worldwide in the ORAP database. The installed base of gas turbines are not just the FAs, but they're the older class units and the newer class units as well. We are a global third-party, industry-wide service provider, and we track the reliability and the availability of the gas turbine fleet. We work on behalf of the major equipment manufacturers, and we cover a variety of product lines. And today we have over 300 7F and 9F units in the ORAP system, as well as a focus on today the 7HA and 9HA as well. As I said earlier, we're sponsored by the OEM, so therefore we are working in this area collaboratively with General Electric, but we do the same with other OEMs as well to cover the operating capability of their fleets. So I started by talking about the fact that we're focused on data. And today in our market, in our world, there's a tremendous amount of data at your fingertips. And the question is, how are you using that data? As I mentioned earlier, SPS has been working with data actually since the late 70s. And the data has always been used to drive process improvement as well as operational and maintenance process improvement within an operating plant. Today, in the world that we live in, the value proposition of SPS and ORAP is establishing a standardized, auditable, repeatable process to allow you to capture data, to reduce the manual effort it takes to get access to data in terms of time, capacity, age, and events, and to improve the data accuracy, to improve the fidelity of the data by evaluating the data across a broad fleet to determine where problems are and if those problems are consistent across the fleet. So the objective is to understand lessons learned so you don't repeat mistakes, and to leverage the data within the business, within your business, to drive the value proposition around how you operate and maintain your fleet. Well, how does ORAP work? Today, ORAP requires data directly from the plant. And there's 4 kinds of data. It starts with the pedigree of the plant. What does the plant look like? If it's a 2-on-1 combined cycle plant, then we need to understand that in fact it's 2-on-1, multi-shaft. And at the end of the day, we would also therefore be interested in not just the gas turbine, but the entire plant. We'd be interested in the heat recovery steam generator, and we'd be interested in the generators that are part of that system, as well as the steam cycle and the steam turbine generator. If there's evaporative cooling, or if there is any other systems that you've put in place to improve the performance of your equipment, then we want to know that within the definition of the pedigree. Pedigree typically is data that we would want to see at the beginning of the reporting process and as changes are made in your equipment, in your plant arrangement over time. But data that we always want to see on a continuing basis are events, age, and operating history. And with respect to age and operating history, Those are your hours and your starts and your service hours and your reserve hours. And I'm going to tell you about a product later on in this presentation that lets you get that data directly from your historian or historian that you might have another variety to allow you to see near real-time data and transform that data to provide productivity improvement. A critical need is to understand failure events, whether they're planned maintenance, whether they're forced outages, and what are the causes, the symptoms, the corrective actions, and essentially the root causes of downtime within your facility. And once that data flows into our operation on a monthly basis or on a near real-time basis, if you're providing that through your PI interface or your historian interface, then that data that we receive from you is evaluated and runs through an edit check, which includes automated edits, and manual data validation. Every piece of data that comes into our system is reviewed for accuracy to ensure that fundamentally when it's combined and aggregated from your plant with other like plants, there's commonality in terms of the treatment of downtime and the treatment of outage and repair times. And our engineers review that data for statistical accuracy. So what's the value of that? What's the value of data? Data really ultimately is a need in the market, in the world that we live in today. But what's the value of ORAP for you as a 7F user or 7FA user? One value is benchmarking. I know that a value proposition is to be able to see how your plant fits in with your peers so that you can understand how your units are performing relative to the fleet. Am I outperforming or am I underperforming the fleet? And let's face it, it's not just about being the average in the market that we live in today. It's about being the best. It's about being best in class. And in order to be best in class, you have to understand where you fit into the rest of the fleet. And then if I want to make improvements, it's about identifying the top contributors to your downtime. It's the frequency and duration of outage events that allow you to control your downtime and to maximize your outcomes, your availability and your reliability. It also allows you to look into the data to determine, is there a fleet issue that I haven't had yet that I need to be aware of? And ultimately, if there is, then ultimately the ORAP system provides data that helps you understand that, to optimize your performance based upon your requirements, your operating history, your operating requirements, and your expectation for how the equipment will function. Today, if you go into the ORAP Analytics portal, there are several outputs that allow you to make comparisons. And these are just a few of them: availability and reliability, and starting reliability, service hours per start. If I have a unit that's operating and changing duty because of the market that we're now in, because of the fact that many gas turbine combined cycle plants are ultimately collaborating in an operating manner with renewable energy systems, and you have higher and higher ramp starts and ramp rates, and you have other things that might be impacting the reliability and the performance of your equipment. It's these RAM KPIs, these benchmarks that allow you to compare how you're operating and ultimately allow you to see how you performed historically when perhaps you were in a base load mode of operation, and then today when maybe you are in a cyclic mode of operation. And what kind of problems did I have, and when I moved from base load to cyclic duty? And those things are all very, very important. Inspections and durations and intervals, those are the things that ORAP's all about. At this point, you could be saying to yourself, well, NERC is doing the same thing. And you're exactly right. We collaborate with NERC. We have a strong working relationship with NERC to ensure that data can be used in a manner that we can actually provide data directly to NERC on your behalf. And and ultimately to improve the quality of the data going into it. I told you I was going to talk about a system that has automated data capture reporting process. And this picture explains that. And let me start by telling you that what I'm going to talk about is compliant. It's CIPS 5 compliant, and so it passes the test of cybersecurity and falling within your total level of control in terms of sharing plant information. And it starts with your plant. It starts with your plant, and it starts with the data that's available through the historian at your plant, and allow us, through our relationship with PI, OSI Soft, we are a OSI Soft partner, and we could take data directly from your historian with your permission. You actually post data to our system through a secure process through Pi Cloud Connect, which is on the right-hand side of this chart, and allow us to receive data. We don't pull data. You push data directly to us, and you're totally in control. Everything on the left side of that chart in the light green is within your control. From the plant, obviously, to the Pi system, to the pushing of data, it's called publishing data to the Pi Cloud Connect, so that we can pull down from the Pi Cloud Connect the data in a secure manner, the 1 per second data, and perhaps even 1 per million in certain areas, so that we can transform that data into time, capacity, age, and event characteristics. And what we've done is we've reduced the amount of labor required in your plant to process that data by 85%. And so if there's a value proposition, it starts off by focusing in on reducing the amount of labor inside your plant that's required to submit data to the ORAP system, or in fact to the NERC system. The way that system's been developed, we've actually developed various applications. You'll see down the left side of this chart, there are several applications: ORAP, RAM Connect, and GADS, Life Calculator, operating profile, and there's others. I'm going to take you briefly through a couple of them. ORAP, RAM Connect, and GADS does exactly everything we just talked about. It lets you pull the data and transform that data so you can share it with NERC through an SPS as a data reporting entity on behalf of NERC, can provide that data to NERC through the OATI organization, which you're obligated to report to if you're a certain size range in the U.S. Life Calculator automatically calculates the various functions that have been developed by the OEMs and perhaps others to calculate useful and expended life for critical parts. So equivalent factored hours and factored starts. If the embedded logic exists in the system for the 7FA family, 9F, to calculate the expended life of the machine as it's traversed time. That allows you then to do better maintenance forecasting and plan your combustion inspections. And even if those inspections are in the hands of the OEM because you have a long-term service contract or a parts contract, understanding how your machine's operating and understanding how that operation influences your downtime and therefore your profitability is very, very important. There are other programs that we have implemented in the Asset Insight program that were not developed by SPS. Dynamics Plus is a product that was developed by a company called Turbolaunch. This organization developed a combustion dynamics monitoring capability that allows you to look at the signature of an engine and alerts the operator to relevant changes. Again, your question could be, well, the OEM might provide something along those same lines. Dynamics Plus is an independent process, an independent organization that develop the same processes. They come out of Georgia Tech, and they developed a system that allows you as the owner-operator to have a higher degree of understanding and a degree of belief regarding the combustion dynamics that might be experienced by your units. The last thing I want to briefly talk about is projects that we're working with Oak Ridge National Labs in the NETO organization, the National Energy Technology Laboratory, to advance the concepts of ORAP using machine learning and advanced pattern recognition, so that we can provide you as an end user the ability to have predictive analytics and the ability to operate your plant in a manner that critical information is provided to you to understand the potential for failures. We're going to talk about that in a little bit later in this presentation. I want to focus in on the GADS reporting for a second, because GADS, again, is a requirement if you are a certain size or if you're in a critical asset. And the value proposition of this system is automatic insertion of all reserve shutdown periods. If you have a unit that's now ultimately a cyclic operating plant, where you have lots of starts and stops, you know that if you report to NERC, you have to report reserve shutdowns. This system will do it for you automatically. Ultimately, we also then take that NERC GADS data and we generate that data from ORAP data, which is a little bit more granular in detail and more accurate. We create files, the required files, in the right format to submit to GADS, and it goes through the verification process that's required before data can be accepted into the GADS system. An area that you should be aware of is that we are working with NERC to ultimately replace the NERC PC-GAR system. PC-GAR is a system that allows the NERC data to be available to the participants, the owner-operators. We will replace that PC-GAR process and provide a common platform through the ORAP Asset Analytics Portal. The reports that we talk about, we will have a single way for you to see not just the ORAP data, but now the NERC GADS data comparison as well. I want to just briefly go back to the Oak Ridge National Energy Technology Laboratory project that we're working on. We've come to the end of the first phase, and we're looking to the next step of that project. But the goal of the project was to predict the adverse behavior of physical systems, components, materials, designs, and with sufficient time to take cost-effective corrective action at the plant. And again, many of you are participants in the remote monitoring systems. This is not intended to compete with remote monitoring from the OEM, but to leverage the data in a way that allows you as an operator, owner-operator of these assets, to be able to see that data independently and as quickly as possible, and then to have the system be leveraged to provide guidance for your operators. The next step of the project is beginning, and that process will direct support directly from many operating plants. And if any of you have an interest in this project and understanding more about it, we have a couple of operator participants with us now. We would be happy to talk to you about it. The goal and objective, it's a DOE project. The goal and objective is the foundation of the digital twin in the hands of the owner-operator. I want to change topics for a second and move away from the ORAP system and talk about another process and product that we have, which allows you to track your critical parts, your rotating assets, your stationary components, your hot section equipment, your combustors, your vanes, your rotating blades, etc. And what this process does is it looks at the remaining life based on those aging algorithms that we talked about earlier. And it eliminates and reduces the effort in manually tracking that data. And let me say that the objective is to track the information to a part serial number level, and we do that. The process that we follow, which is repeatable and standardized, is we work with the owner, operator, the end user, in a workshop to develop a plan to define the parts that we will track. And then we will take our process, which you can see in the upper right-hand corner. It's kind of graphical, and you'll see that it is, and we'll tailor that to your specific needs. And we will train your staff, your parts people, to be able to track that information and then to ultimately use it in a manner that allows you to manage your assets and control your costs in terms of replacement. Make sure you've expended as much life as possible before you scrap those parts. Here's a picture of our screens. You see it's a highly graphical presentation of assets. There are drilled down to various modules so that you can look at modules and sets, our individual serial numbers. We track the parts life used and the parts life remaining on the chart here. We'll also show you current status and the visual alerts. There will be several alerts that's based on this data that will indicate that maybe perhaps something's going on that you ultimately need to be aware of in terms of those parts. So the other thing I thought I would do is before we move on is give you an example of a customer experience. I can't define who the customer is, but I can tell you it's a 7FA user. I can tell you that this owner-operator has several plants, but this challenge was focused on 3 distinct plants. And when we focused on their issues, within those 3 plants, they had multiple processes. They had different calculations for tracking the availability and reliability, and they did it in different formats. It wasn't a uniform process. Reporting was difficult. It was a secondary job for many of the plant personnel, and the results were often inadequate or in question. And there was no benchmarking available. Their objective was to reduce the manual input that it took for them to report the data, to improve the data fidelity and the data quality, and to improve the timeliness of the data back within their business. And not just within their plant, but ultimately within their financial operation. So the objective was to optimize data collection and reduce the requirements that need to be performed by the staff. And so what did we do? We implemented that chart that I showed you earlier, which is our asset insight product, and we automated their data collection process. We streamlined their process across the 3 plants. And the data flows, again, securely providing information to ORAP through their Cloud Connect. It's a process that's ultimately scalable and maintainable. And it provided reduced cost and benefit in terms of controlling any logistical issues they had and managing data in the past. It allowed them to see weekly production reports that now were accurate. It allowed them to see each of their operating missions and what their operating profile was. And yes, their profile changed over time. It allowed them to take that information and use it to plan and to manage their maintenance requirements and to understand how their key performance indicators were being achieved and whether they were meeting their financial obligations and expectations for their owners. And then absolutely, yes, they implemented the parts tracking capability so they can track their critical parts, their combustion and their hot gas path parts. I'm going to end the presentation by talking about an organization that I'm the managing director of. It's an organization called the Gas Turbine Association. It is comprised of all of the major turbine manufacturers. And in the world that we live in today, one of the critical questions is, where is gas turbine technology going to fit in the energy solution for today and for tomorrow? And we all know what's going on in our world today. We all know that there are things that are happening: climate change, need for zero carbon emissions. There are other issues that are driving the way the OEMs are responding to the needs of the owner-operators. The impact of renewable energy, solar and wind, and the impact of the need for carbon capture and sequestration, the concept of hydrogen as a fuel, a commitment to low-carbon technologies. This Gas Turbine Association speaks for the members, not just the manufacturers, but also the members, the owner-operators of gas turbines who have a vested interest in that technology, a vested interest in terms of the expected pro forma life that you wanted to achieve when you bought and implemented that asset in your plant, in the field. So the goal of the Gas Turbine Association is to be a strong voice for you and a strong voice for the OEMs, to make sure that we are talking to policymakers, to Congress, to the Department of Energy, to make sure that our voice is being heard with respect to gas turbine technology and the installed base of gas turbines as an important part of our energy solution for the future. If you're not involved in GTA, I would be very happy to talk to you about it and have you consider becoming a member of our organization. So thank you for the time that you give us. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send them to me. If you want to learn more about ORAP or Parts Track or Asset Insight, very happy to talk to you about it. There's going to be a virtual vendor fair that the Combined Cycle Journal is making available to you and to us to work together. We thank the Combined Cycle Journal for this opportunity. And if you come to the virtual booth, we will have a $100 Amazon gift card available for a lucky winner. So thank you for the time, and I appreciate this opportunity.